And to review the major stories from minicamp, joining Zack, Tawatari, and me, it's former Texans wide receiver J.J. Moses, the author of the book Focus, the Prepared to Win Mindset, and Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610. All-star cast tonight.
Let's go.
What did we do to deserve the two of you tonight?
It's game time, man. I'm excited, right? This is it, Brandon.
Hey, man, this is the time where you get the heavy hitters and the high rollers. I'm glad to be here, man.
Let's go.
Apparently.
Yeah.
All right, so the past week, it was really our first time to hear from the new wide receiver in Stefon Diggs. Given how it ended in Buffalo, how did Diggs do in his first press conference?
You know, for the first time, I saw Diggs actually smiling. And that's big, of course, new culture, new team, but that's what Coach DeMeco Ryans brings to the table. He brings this positive energy. Guys gravitate towards that. So I hope these smiles continue towards this middle of the season as they're finishing up this ball club for 2024.
And see, I always thought that he would do well. That's why it was curious to me that we had to wait so long. I'm like, man, Stefon Diggs is on the team. I remember going out there for practice and laying eyes on the guy and thinking, hey, you know what, there's a different energy around this team. Stefon Diggs is here. DeMeco Ryans is coaching the team. C.J. Stroud is going into year 2. Let's embrace this thing. My only complaint was that we had to wait so long to hear from the guy. But once we did, it was about what I expected. One of the themes of what Stefon Diggs had to say was, I've been in the league a long time. He kept on hitting on that veteran leadership aspect of it and what he's bringing to the table. I think it's going to be a hit, especially in year 1. It's a 1-year deal. Stefon Diggs, there's something that's, I think, good for him on the other side of this if everything goes well. So everyone should be highly motivated this year.
Yeah, I think for every reason, it's a good move for the Texans and for Stefon Diggs. He gets the chance to prove what he can do and potentially sign a longer-term deal after this. I think the incentive is on both sides. But I also think, like Brandon said, you know, we waited a long time to hear from him, right? But what I'll say is that he came out, spoke like a veteran, talking about the fact that he has been in the league for such a long time, but also handling the tougher questions pretty well when you heard him asked about, you know, his time in Buffalo, the perception it didn't go well. You know, he really talked about the fact that he's really only concerned with those opinions within the locker room, and I thought he was very thoughtful in all of his answers.
And the word diva wasn't used that day, but listen, that is the overwhelming feeling around the league and from fans. But I think you're hitting on it, though. Stefon Diggs looks really good now, but we'll see if he's still smiling come November or December.
Absolutely. And we all know Stefon, he's 30 years old, but he had a phenomenal season. Of course, arguably, a lot of people say he's kind of declining. But, I mean, whenever you can have 107 catches, 1,183 yards, plus 8 touchdowns, like right now the guy's not slowing down. He doesn't need the 4.340. Let, of course, Tank Dell and, Nico Collins run fast, but he's an intermediate guy. He's still going to make the big plays, and I'm excited to see what he can continue to bring to this ball club.
And JJ is hitting on the football aspect, the part of his game that makes this work, but there is also, I think, going to be the relationship with C.J. Stroud. The things that Stefon Diggs said in this press conference were, and here's how he's like the rest of us. You talked about how he's special as a player, but how he's like the rest of us. He said, I believe in the quarterback. I believe in this team. And at this point, who does not, and why would you not? And that, to me, is the reason why this is going to work out. It's the belief and what you've seen so far.
It does, and it's so vital because it's big when you have a quarterback like C.J. Stroud. DeMeco mentioned this, but C.J.'s calls in an atmosphere where players feel active to communicate. And C.J., for the first time, is going around and connecting not with the offensive linemen, not with the wide receivers, but also, Brandon, he's connecting with the special teams player. That's right there a winning culture, and that's what's going to continue to get respect with his teammates, and I'm excited for that. It's a people's culture.
Yeah, and I posted a video of Diggs from OTAs on social media, and Texans fans just loved it. JJ, let's go over here. Tell me what you see from Stefon Diggs. Now, this was during 7-on-7s, and I know that it's not defense per se, but what do you like about Diggs?
Well, right now you see him in motion, and right up here at the top, right there, he puts on this move. It's called, Jason, the dead leg. As a player,
the dead leg.
The dead leg. And when you're on top of your stem and you're hitting that move to the left-hand side and you're breaking off, it creates massive separation. And Stefon, he's a true pro. He's not running a 4.340, but he knows how to make separations. And that's what the team will continue to do what Stephon. They will continue to put him in motion, let him maneuver. He's got great footwork, and that's going to be his advantage this season.
And really, he's a guy that can do so many things. So what a weapon, obviously, that he can play underneath, but he can probably stretch the field still as well, right?
He can still stretch the field, but again, that's where Tank Dell and this massive Nico Collins, who just signs a massive deal, a 3-year, $72 million.
The boy got his own money.
The boy got his own money. So with all those big-time type players, of course, with Stephon Diggs, all he has to do is go in and catch those intermediate routes, bring this confidence, bring this swagger, and keep communicating with CJ, and hopefully this ball club will be okay.
We heard from a lot of people during this offseason program. What was the most interesting thing said during this mini camp?
Man, it's hard to limit it because we heard a lot. We heard from C.J. Stroud talking about the growth and maturation from year 1 to year 2, how it was a night and day difference in terms of his comfort level. We heard from Tank Dell, obviously having I would say a tumultuous last couple of months with what he had been through. We got to hear from him for the first time. So there's so much to pick from. But when we talk about just the team, the thing that stood out to me the most was how much praise the rookie Kamari Lassiter got. And we got to get a look at him outside, on the field actually, and see him making plays for ourselves with our own eyes. But when you talk to the players and talk to the coaches about him, they seem to be pleasantly surprised. They obviously believed in the guy because they wouldn't have drafted him otherwise, but they seem to be pleasantly surprised with how much he's been able to contribute early. I think there was a feeling when he was drafted of, hey, they got the third cornerback in a run of cornerbacks. So they didn't have a first-round pick.
He doesn't run fast. He's not a track guy.
But he goes out there and he makes plays. He's from a winning culture coming from Georgia. I'm really, really high on Kamari Lassiter based off of what we've seen so far and how they're talking about the guy.
Love it. John Michie, number 3. I mean, with a big-time name like that, I'm so grateful to see that he's overcome that cancer ordeal. And, of course, of course, with that whole ordeal and just seeing how he's able to bounce back. He is a player, in my mindset, that he overcomes like the difficult situations, and he's battle tested. So I wouldn't be surprised if this type of guy from Alabama, drafted 2nd round, can go on to continue to make big plays for this ball club.
I was really impressed by Will Anderson's honesty that he got called out by a vet. He jumped off size, and who said something?
Yeah, Azeez Al-Shaair.
Right. There you go. And said, listen, man, stop pouting.
Yeah.
With another word thrown in there. And remember, Will Anderson was a captain last year. So I think that says a lot about the culture and Will Anderson, that he was able to accept that criticism or that being called out and just moved on and really thought about it too. You can tell it marinated in his head.
Yeah, and also the leadership that it takes to be willing to do that for a guy who is a guy that's highly touted like Will Anderson. They did all they did to go get him, to trade for him last year. He goes out there and makes good on it as the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. And you've got a vet from another team coming in and saying, and he's the middle linebacker, the Mike linebacker, and Azeez Al-Shaair, and he's saying, hey, I'm not afraid to call out the other leaders on this team, the golden child of the team, or whatever the case may be. If the moment calls for it, I'm going to step up and do it.
And that's big because that shows there's no egos on the Houston Texans team. When you got a guy, like you said, a Will Anderson, who's a proven factor. He's made a big-time campaign for possibly a Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Yeah.
But yet for him to accept the criticism, that's what it takes for this team to continue to move forward.
And you were in the room. What intrigued you?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of no egos, I think the whole idea of this camp being all about competition. You hear it from every team every year, but the difference is that the Texans actually have competition at seemingly every position, especially when it comes to wide receiver. I mean, I think Nico Collins didn't even get one rep on the first day of minicamp in 7-on-7s, and still, the Texans are talking about, we're spreading the ball around. These are guys with all different kinds of skill sets. Wow. And it seems like they're really all supporting each other and in it to be in competition with each other throughout camp, but ultimately know all their places on the team.
He mentions competition. Wow. We're not done talking football. We're looking ahead to the competition in training camp. It's ahead on Sports Extra. As promised, more football talk with Zack, Brandon Scott, and J.J. Moses. Hard to believe, but we're a little more than a month away now from training camp. So which position battle really intrigues you the most?
It's got to be cornerback. For me, it's got to be cornerback. The cornerback opposite of Derek Stingley, and not just that, but the cornerback that's playing on the inside, that's playing in the slot. Like, what's going on there? I know Desmond King, they brought him back, but the outside corner, Steven Nelson, no longer on the team. They brought in Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson. They drafted Kamari Lassiter, who we've discussed. There are a few guys. There are more candidates than positions there, so that's the obvious nature of a competition. How is it going to play out? You got a couple of veterans who at one point were highly thought of for the spot that they were drafted. You got a new guy that's coming in and impressing guys with Kamari Lassiter. How does that play out? How does the position group exactly look by the end of it? I'm excited and very, very much anticipating what that looks like.
Love that, B. I think for me, of course, being an offensive-minded guy,
all right.
I'm checking out the wide receiver group. Of course, that's highly talked about across every facet of life. But, of course, you got Nico Collins, who signed a massive deal. And then you got Tank Dell, who's coming off arguably one of the best rookie seasons as a wide receiver. And then Stephon Diggs, who's everyone's excited to see what will we get out of him. Who's the fourth receiver?
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this, but, again, I'm maybe a little biased.
No,
but
I think
we have a guy by the name of Xavier Hutchinson, who was from my alma mater,
Oh,
Iowa State University.
I see where it's going now.
Of course, I'm trying to cheer to see what's going to take place with him. I mean, the guy was a phenomenal player back at Iowa State. He was Big 12 a few different times, and he's just an amazing guy. So, again, it's going to be interesting to see what direction, but there's so many weapons within this wide receiver position.
And also Noah Brown.
Yep. Noah Brown.
Obviously would have to put him in there, and then Robert Woods, and Steven Sims.
So you mentioned Mechie earlier.
Yeah, Mechie. So
as well.
that's going to be definitely a competition to keep an eye on. What about for you, Zach?
It's also cornerback for me, especially that battle between Jeff Okudah and C.J. Henderson. You mentioned they were both highly touted at one point, in their careers when they were drafted. These are guys that were both drafted in the first round in 2020, only about 6 spots away from each other. Obviously, the Texans have made a little bit of a bigger investment right now for this year with Okudah, but these are guys both on one-year deals. They want to prove themselves and probably are fighting for their careers in the league at this point in their careers.
And I don't know if this is a major battle in terms of some of the guys on the line, but I'm going to just focus on Kenyon Green. Where does he ultimately wind up on the line? And is he finally ready to contribute?
Yeah, it's one of the other things that was really fascinating to hear from the press conferences.
Yes.
Because there's no need to put undue praise on a player and the work that they're doing in the offseason. You can sometimes tell by how many words and how much time a player or a coach will spend in a given answer and how long they'll talk about a given player. They went out of their way, I felt like, players and coaches alike, to credit Kenyon Green for the work that he's done since he's been out. And I'm of the belief that sitting out last year, getting his body right, and you got to remember, this is a young guy too, so I think there was an element of growing into his body as well, and I think that benefited him. I'm also fascinated to see how that plays. I don't know how much of a competition that's going to be if he's right. If he's playing up to his potential and to the way that they thought of him, that should be his job to lose.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just think the offensive line, if they can just stay healthy throughout the whole season and protect this amazing quarterback that we have with C.J. Stroud, we should be okay.
Boy, speaking of amazing, how about these two guys? J.J. Moses, the author of the book Focus, The Prepared to Win Mindset, and Brandon Scott from Sports Radio 610. Guys, thanks for being here tonight on Sports Extra.
Thanks so much, you guys.
It was a pleasure.